Hello, everybody. Welcome to PGS Treks. I am your host, Mmmm, and of course, we couldn't have the show without Julian. Julian, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great, RM. It's back to be back. It's great to be back trekking with you.
Yeah, Julian. Certainly, we had 1 week off, and we are back. Everybody, certainly about to talk a lot of what's going on with Star Trek, but in particular, Strange New Worlds. Two very interesting episodes came out. Of course, this episode that many people have been talking about, have been waiting for, have been commenting on, and certainly it was an experience to watch it. Is the musical episode of Star Trek. I can't remember what they call it, something Trek Rhapsody or something like that. And so that was that episode. And of course, you and I have seen that episode. We're going to talk about that episode. And of course, the season finale, which was also, I don't know, a unique episode, a unique episode. Certainly, there's a lot to say about both episodes.
Yes.
Yes. So let's start with this musical episode, Julian. Honestly, I I didn't know what to think of it because what's kind of interesting about it is the fact that one of the lady who plays Uhura does have, experience in musicals and singing, and it was seemed pretty clear that by the end of the episode, when she finally sang, when they gave her a chance to kind of really start singing, it seemed pretty clear that she knew what she was doing. But I think it's interesting that they chose to pretty much have everybody sing, even if they're not necessarily a singer in the episode. Another kind of really interesting part was that, it had to be induced by some kind of alien. It's an episode, they don't actually want to sing, they're being forced to sing.
Yeah.
And it's like, it would have been nice for it just to have been like, well, we're going to sing this. We're going to do this. I kind of wanted, what I think the way I would have done this episode would have been to have Uhura on the holodeck and kind of have this singing episode where she has this experience and, somehow it gives her some other special ability. But yeah, it was a singing episode. And what did you think about the episode 9 of Star Strange New Worlds, Julian?
Yeah. So I believe it was called Subspace Rhapsody, I think is what it was. So the singing crew is predicated apparently upon Spock trying to use something they found to see if they can speed up communications through subspace, and they end up trying music at the suggestion of the engineer, and she says, "Why don't you try music?" And Uhura pumps in the America's songbook, classic musicals. And apparently, the subspace area that they're investigating, whatever, I can't even remember what it was, is very intrigued by this idea of music. Some sort of improbability field is invoked, and suddenly they are finding that when they're describing their feelings, the laws of musicals take over, and they're all singing. Which, okay, yes. You were mentioning Celia Rose Gooding, who is a Grammy winner, I believe, and has been nominated for other awards regarding her work on Broadway, and also, Christina Chong is known as a singer as well, and so she's certainly demonstrated that as in her part. But once again, it's the lightest of touches of some sort of a sci-fi idea, I suppose, that you could only find in Star Trek. And once again, we're our plot is reduced to talking about things that have to do with our crew and their feelings with each other. There's, you know, other than the fact that whatever they've created is spreading and could eventually take over the whole, area of Federation space and beyond, which would be hilarious. Um, they find this to be perhaps quite dangerous, because if you're forced to emote your feelings, you might tell people things that you don't want to tell them. And we see this happen several times throughout the course of the show. But again, why are we spending time finding out how the crew feels about each other? It's not.
Yeah, there are no secrets on this ship.
Yeah.
Apparently the walls are paper thin, and even if they were not paper thin, everybody overshares, so there is no kind of secret or anything like that. And at first I thought when they said Subspace Rhapsody, it would have been something like Bohemian Rhapsody or even Hamilton. Maybe Lin-Manuel was going to start writing some songs. This could have been, something incredible. And you were right. They kind of alluded to the Great American Songbook. And I thought, great, maybe all the songs are going to be like the Great American Songbook. We could sing along. It could be all space themed songs that, I guess they pick that are American standards that sound like they could be Star Trek affiliated. But then you get to a point in the show where Spock and the crew are questioning, why are we singing? And it's kind of, they're being forced to sing. And I don't know about you, but I don't want people to be forced into anything. Singing's supposed to be kind of joyous and, come from the heart. And, singing under duress, whoopee, like, yay, it's under duress, yay, it kind of seems a little, I don't know, not as joyous as singing is supposed to be. I don't know.
Well,
yeah.
It's. I think I've heard it somewhere before that in some therapies for perhaps overcoming shyness or things like that. That I mean, I think that there were times when therapists used to try and promote perhaps singing to, instead of talking, to try and overcome, if you were having trouble talking to people or something like that. We don't even, I do not recall, but I don't think we have any of the characters actually remarking that they're like, I never knew I had it in me to sing, and perhaps finding, a joy in that in itself. Going, oh my gosh, I never thought I could sing like that. And so, but no, it's just like that happened, and we don't want it to happen again, and let's make it stop. Particularly Pike, who's like, let's shoot it. Let's make it stop now.
And that's what happens because, every musical that we see, there are passionate things. People are singing from the heart. They're singing with passion. And you lose that passion when people are singing under duress. They're being forced to sing these songs that they don't necessarily want to even do. And you mentioned Pike saying, hey, this is kind of private. I don't want everybody to know this. And I'm thinking to myself, well, everybody knows everything that's going on the ship. Like everybody knows all your secrets. But even so, it's supposed to be, you lose the passion if people are actually being forced into this. I mean, why not have the captain sing a song about how goddamn charming he is? Why not a song like that? Like something that's believable, where he kind of looks in the mirror and sings, I look pretty, or something we recognize, something that would be very funny to hear. And of course is, like true for the purposes of the show, but emotions will tear everybody apart. It is very interesting. I even laughed, Julian, at when they did a vocal improvisation of the do 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 do, they're like da ba ba, and I'm like, yeah, okay. It was kind of funny to hear it, but there were also kind of these sort of notions where, and I have the picture zoomed in on Chapel, where she feels so great to get off this ship. Oh my God, Julian, it feels amazing to get off this ship. It feels great.
He's ready to go.
She left yesterday, guys. Um, so and then you see Spock, and it's like I almost felt a little sad for him,
Oh yeah.
But boy, this she was just like on top of the world. It was the most. She can't wait to get the hell out of there. What do you think, Julian?
Well, yeah, certainly she's frustrated with the state of things between her and Spock, and so she's decided, especially after the information that she got from Boimler previously, that she is not going to be part of his life in the future. That she is a footnote that apparently the future doesn't even know about, and this kind of bothers her. So she's obviously ready to go off and do something else because she's not sure what's going on with her and Spock. So I think she's ready to go, but she hasn't said this to Spock yet. Kind of a faux pas on her part.
Yeah, it really was. It's like, I think she pretty much was like, I'm gonna wash that man right out of my
Yes.
I don't know, whatever they would call it, out of my hair. But that would have been interesting for them to kind of parody musicals we already know with I Feel Pretty, or I'm going to wash that man right out of my hair, or even hearing Spock say there ain't nothing like a dame. I think if they had stuck with the singers and standards that we know, it could have been interesting to kind of explore that and just go off of songs we know. We could sing along with it and kind of, go from there. But, I think they were trying to grab onto, like an Avenue Q kind of, Dear Evan Hansen. What are some of the other ones that I think that this one really reminded me of? Yeah, Avenue Q, Dear Evan Hansen, maybe even Rent, but the low rent version. All that kind of stuff in here. But as I said, what made those musicals great was that the characters have an extreme emotion that's real and not something that they're not forced to do that. And then I started to think about Noon and how she finally lets loose and talks about how she feels. And it was like she finally goes up to Kirk, and then she has to have this awkward, well, it's not you, a different you. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I can understand her singing and talking about how much she cares about him, but that part was a bit awkward, like it was weird. He wasn't going to get that. So I think it is very interesting to see that. And certainly, maybe she could have kept some of that stuff to herself. You have to share everything, right? But there was even a Klingon moment. And clearly to me, it should have been more like a Snoop Dogg moment, but it became more like the Pirates of Penzance, or I don't even know how to describe it, but
boy band.
Well, they had swords, and swords kind of. I was like, what? Who would have a sword? A pirate might have something like that, and it was kind of very sparkly and shiny, and I think they were dancing in unison. We saw a lot of, jumping up and down in the hallways. And gosh, I haven't seen this much spirit since Spirit Week in high school, Julian. This really was, I think if anything, maybe one of their most comedic versions. But I do think that it could have possibly worked if they focused on a horror. I think she could have gone in the holodeck. And, she just used AI to kind of solve a problem, because it's with the holodeck. Well, maybe it's not artificial intelligence, but go in there, have a musical story that happens, and then go back to work. It would have been very interesting to have that rather than change the actual reality of what goes on in the bridge and the entire ship for real, so to speak. I think it could have worked if she was in the holodeck. That might have been, somewhat more believable. What do you think, Julian? Do you think a holodeck twist could have worked on this?
No. I think it was a deliberate they deliberately stayed away from that because I think Next Gen and a lot, you know, the other shows, they really played the holodeck out to death, I think. And so I think it was probably, I don't think that that would have saved the show. It wouldn't have made any difference to what we were seeing. Um, I don't know what they were trying to get at. They weren't. We didn't learn anything about the human experience, the human condition. And isn't that what Star Trek is supposed to be about? Is finding out, you know, discovering and discovering subjects that need to be, you know, talked about, that are present, that affect us in the world that we're living in, that we, you know, that we can apply these ideas to and go, well, you know what, you know, maybe that needs to be looked at. Maybe that's something that we can think about from another point of view, type of a thing. Nothing like that happened here. All we did was explore our feelings towards one another and the crew. And so it seems like a wasted episode. I'm sure they had fun doing it. Their theme this season has been, you know, big swings. And as far as I'm concerned, that thing was a miss. That was a strike.
Yeah, it was ultimately an unsexy, frustrating foray in space. What I really wanted was, let's keep with the love boat theme. You know, it could have been very love boaty, very campy. I would have gone with that. Even in fact, I think I probably would have been jumping up and down for joy if they had gone that far. But I feel like right here, this picture right there would have been like, you could see him, there is nothing like a dame, nothing, anything like you could see him singing that there. And, you know, it would have been very different attitude of, why am I singing? Hey, this is private, you know. But,
yeah, but, you know, I think it was somebody else I saw mentioned maybe it could have worked if it had been like a Q situation where it's like, well, this is the situation you're in. You are now in a musical. And it was totally separate from, you know, from what they're experiencing. We don't even know what it was that caused this thing. You know, they managed to stop it from happening, but we don't even know if there was any real intelligence involved in whatever it was that caused it to happen in the first place. It's just a freak of space-time continuum. So we learned nothing there. You know, at least if it had been some other, you know, some intelligence, some sentient force actually working on them to be that way, perhaps they could have worked it in such a way that they actually discover something meaningful, you know, about stuff, but they really don't.
yeah, I mean, if anything, I guess it was a little strange. So I got a little strangeness in it. But yeah, nothing really matters in subspace. Rhapsody wasn't faster than the speed of light to me, Julian. It was really just a very kind of it felt, you know, sadly very, you know, high school-ish, which is fine. You know, maybe that's what they wanted, but you know, why not bring in some of those big names, you know, like Lin-Manuel or somebody else to write one song for the episode and make that a spectacular song. They're going to go with the original songs, which they did, and then leave the rest for songs that we recognize. They could have even gone with pop songs, you know, like with Meatloaf. Well, maybe it's not a pop song. But I think that might have been for a musical, but I'd do anything for love, but I won't do that, or whatever it is. You know, why not have some kind of fun sing-alongs that we can sing along? But yeah, this was a very different show, and certainly yeah, I mean, I kind of was saying that I'm waiting for Star Trek the musical to appear on Broadway. Maybe there might
along with yeah, along with the Captain America show, right?
Yeah, there might have already been one. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? But certainly, yeah, this was so yeah, that first episode, it was something else. Yeah, yeah. I don't have anything else to say about it.
Yeah, I don't either.
And they are looking kind of confused. Oh, that's my favorite. Oh, look at the joy there, Julian. I think it's not what you think at first. They haven't lost
No.
gravity on the ship. They're actually jumping for joy at the same time. Um, what?
They're not on their way to a rumble?
They're not on their way.
You're a jet all the way from your first cigarette.
That would have been more interesting, Julian. If they could have pulled that off, I think people would have been like, wow, they did West Side Story in space. That would have been very interesting with, let's say we're the Jets and the Klingons are the Sharks. That would have been very interesting. And people were saying something about expecting to hear Klingon opera. What do you think, Julian?
Well, if anything, yeah, it probably should have gone that way. It's the music that we know most Klingons respond to. Thanks to TNG and Worf, we know that their Klingons have a good appreciation for Klingon opera. It really gets their bloodlust going in many ways. So, yeah, it should have been. If the Klingons were going to be affected by doing musical, then they should have been doing the type of music that they know.
And not Xanadu. Not Xanadu, right?
Yeah, not Xanadu, not boy band, not ba ba ba. Yeah, so
everybody.
That was bad. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it could have been opera, and it could have been somewhat paced in the manner that we hear. I don't know all Klingon operas, but I know that the pattern and tone is very different, and that would have definitely, like, you grabbed your attention. Like, oh my God, it's Klingon opera. Could you imagine? Oh my God, it's Klingon opera. Oh my God. Which is what I would have said. Maybe not everybody would have said that, but I would be like, oh my God, it's Klingon opera. You just get excited to hearing it. So hearing them when whatever it was that they were saying, yeah, I noticed how shiny the swords were. Did you notice how shiny they were?
Well, on those long voyages, you got to do something. So polishing your sword, you got to do that, right?
It makes me want to dance. It's like PGS Treks. We need our own theme song here on PGS Treks. Yeah, who knew? Who knew? Something, Julian, you and I are going to have a musical episode of our own one of these days in celebration of this milestone that has taken place on Star Trek. We certainly do have to give it justice. Yeah. And, certainly we have to think about that. So, yeah, I think let's go on to the next episode, shall we?
Yes. Let's go on to that finale episode of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, this finale, obviously I didn't know that it was going to be, I guess this is a spoiler, but I don't know whether it matters right now. I didn't know it was going to be a cliffhanger. Did you know it was going to be a cliffhanger?
I didn't know exactly. I was hearing, because I didn't watch it until like yesterday evening, but I had been hearing some people talking about it in anticipation, and it just occurred to me that they're going to do something like that, because they're going to set something up. We knew we were expecting the Gorn because of everything that they'd said earlier in the season, preseason, all the trailers. We knew that they were going to show up. And so yes, the hegemony, the Gorn hegemony, which I can't remember where that first came. I remember first seeing it when I was playing Starfleet Battles and FASA and Star Trek role playing. But once again, they are developing. They're trying to develop the Gorn to show us that they are. There's some more. We already know that they're intelligent. They have to be. They're flying frickin' spaceships. It's So it's like, okay, there's got to be some intelligent Gorns out there, So yeah, so they're aggressive, but this staged life cycle thing that they have going, that they've based so broadly off of the xenomorphs from Aliens is just so tropey, it's not original.
When you saw the Gorns hanging from the ceiling and the tail runs down, it reminds you of Alien? Is that what you're saying, Julian?
Maybe, yes, maybe I might be saying that. Yeah, why are we picking all the low-hanging fruit when we're writing our stories? Yeah, because, everybody's seen it. I mean, we already saw this back in the very first episode of the season when the Klingon was drinking, having the drinking, contest with La'an, and she pulls the hood back, and of course it's La'an having the, and she's going to be exactly, like Karen Allen's character in Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's just like, come on.
Those long tails bending around and whipping back and forth. It was almost like a Ray Harryhausen combination of a Gorn and an alien tail together. When that Gorn was kind of floating away, his body looked like something from Ray Harryhausen, which I'm fine with. But it was very different to see that, and of course. What happens in this episode, which is not a surprise, they lose communications with the ship, another ship, and of course, the captain's girlfriend is on the surface of the planet, and so is Nurse Chapel. So, now there's this. Okay, what happens? The Gorn suddenly show up and like wreak havoc. They go nuts. And it is a Gorn fest. They just are destroying things and blocking communications and all sort of stuff like that. So yeah, and then there's an away team that goes down to the surface trying to rescue everybody. We find out the captain's girlfriend is she's been xenomorphed or been supplanted with eggs or whatever the Gorn.
Yeah, however it works.
And then, of course, we have that Spock saves the day scene, which I kind of liked, where he's like, I can do this. And he's, take the remaining Solstice part of the ship, whatever's remaining of it, the saucer part, and force it to go and destroy some special building that is blocking everything. So it is, they got something going on in regards to the storyline. I noticed that in the story, when they get to the surface, we meet a character who we haven't seen before. And of course, that is Scotty, right, Julian?
Yes, they managed to bring in another character from TOS. How original for them. Yes, we see early on in the teaser, we see a shuttle flying pell-mell past them in the sky on fire and crashing in the distance. And, I kind of was led to believe that was a shuttle that escaped from Batel's ship. I can't even remember what the name of her ship is because it's such a bizarre name anyway. And we find out that Scotty was part of a team that was doing experimentation on some nearby sun. Or maybe it was this sun. I didn't even know for sure if it was the same system sun. What's interesting, not about that, but, once the Enterprise arrives on scene and is trying to ascertain what's going on, the Gorn send a message directly to Starfleet and send out an image saying, basically, we're claiming this planet, don't cross this line. Which is kind of interesting. They're like, okay, let's not start a war over this yet. Let's try and find out. And of course, Pike's like, no, I think we're going to have to go down and save our people. We're just not going to let this sit. So once again, Erica gets to do some fancy driving in the shuttle. We just like we found out last week, or the week before in the singing one, she drives the ship. By now, we know Erica drives the ship. That's all she does.
She does. I mean, she can pick up a dermal, repair thing, whatever it's called, the dermal thing.
Oh, yeah, to help out. Yeah.
Yep, just to help out. But yeah, she's behind the wheel, and whether you like it or not, that's how it's going down. And she finally got her time to be out. Yeah, it is very funny.
We are 20 episodes into this show. 20 episodes, and Erica drives the ship. It's like, really? You could not come up with more things about this character? It's like, hell, by like episode 3 or 4 of we knew that astrophysicist, he also was into botany. We knew that he preferred fencing with a rapier, foil, but nonetheless, we knew all these things about these characters. Yet 20 episodes in to Strange New Worlds, and Erica, she drives the ship and wants to go on an away mission. And that is pretty much it.
Yeah.
That's sad.
It is sad. I do kind of like when Spock and Chapel, magically get reunited on the ship. She's I guess as soon as she beamed up, she was knocked out and still alive, and finds a spacesuit, which is essential for the scene. And together they defeated Gorn, who is trying to put in a password into a computer system. But it was very funny to see that there. So they've been hinting that at least we haven't necessarily been seeing a whole bunch of scenes where the captain is looking in the mirror and sees something horrible, and it actually ends on his face. Like, it's maybe one of the last things you see. But I thought they were going to do a big explosion at that point, and then end of episode. But instead, it was more like, and that's it. It was not. It wasn't. It was okay. But it wasn't like one of those cliffhangers where I'm like thinking to myself, I'm just not going to make it until I see season 3. I didn't feel that way. What about you, Julie?
I'm not, just about every character just about all the main characters on the ship have plot armor, which tells us we know that they're going to survive. So it's like where there is no urgency. We know Chapel's going to survive. We know, in fact, the plot armor shows up in this episode where she is the only one who wasn't killed. There's people laying all over the place. She's a nurse. She's a medical professional. She doesn't even bother to check and see if anybody else is just stunned. She left them there to go off on her own, dazed. Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, she's a little shocked. She's dazed. They're running out of oxygen. So, and answer to your question, Irene, yes, I am into steampunk. So, but yeah, she doesn't even check to see if anybody else is okay. She goes off and does her thing. But we know Spock survives. We know Pike survives. We know Uhura survives. We know Mbinga survives. We know. So it's like we know Chapel survives. We know Scotty survives. It's like, I don't care. We know the Enterprise survives. So why are we worried about this? And not to mention, they keep on talking about how this is we're staying within canon with TOS, which we've already discussed other reasons why they're not. But this whole thing with the Gorn is so bloody ridiculous. To have Starfleet so aware of the Gorn and how they've been the contingency pod that has all the weapons that are, so they can deal with the Gorn, which and then why would Kirk be so surprised, when he meets up with the Gorn in Arena? It's like, what, they just decided not to tell him? It's like, no, that every Starfleet captain out there, every Starfleet officer by this point would know about the Gorn. And so, whatever many years, 8, 9, 10, 11 years later, of course, Kirk is going to know about the Gorn. But no, the Metron tells him that's a Gorn. He's like, oh, he doesn't know. He doesn't know. And so many people make fun of the Gorn from that episode. But from Arena, and you think, how is this a thing? But they did the best they could, on the production, value that they had to make the show. And the best thing about TOS is that most of the time it is the story that is what's important. It's not the special effects. It's not the sets. It is the story. Most of those stories could be told on a stage in a playhouse, and they would still be as effective as they are because the stories were what were important about it. But that's not the case most of the time now with current Trek.
Well, it feels like an emotional roller coaster to me, Julian, because just one episode ago, they were jumping up and down for joy. And now it's like, they're wiping the blood stains off of their faces. Like this is getting serious all of a sudden.
Well, yes, and we had the episode right before Subspace Rhapsody where we find out that Mbinga is this stone cold killer who used to be in special ops, and is this ghost type of assassin that can go in and just take out Klingons, and that he's suffering from PTSD, and it's like, and then we go into a musical, and then we come into this thing.
It could have been a musical where it was more dour. That could have been something like a foreshadowing to this episode. Which I think
here's another thing. We know that Sam Kirk survives too. Because he has to go get married to Aurelian and have James's nephew, Peter, I think is his name. I can't even remember. But yeah. So there's all this plot armor that's protecting a whole bunch of these characters, and so
except for his girlfriend.
Oh well, yeah, she's gonna die.
Yeah.
She's like if the writers if they figure out some way to get her out of this, right? And maybe they will. I would be sad because it meant that they spent more of their brain power trying to figure out how to save the captain's girlfriend than coming up with a decent story for the frickin' season. It's sad. 10 episodes per season, and this season they really, really kind of wasted their chance to tell compelling stories. I'm not going to lie. There are moments throughout the season that I really enjoyed, and I can separate this, telling this alternate vision of Trek from the Trek that I grew up with and love so much. But and so I can kind of watch it without getting too upset. But it's still sad that they wasted their moments to tell these trite stories and spent so much time looking at the crew and spending time with how the crew was dealing with their feelings for everybody and things like that, and only had like maybe one or two interesting stories this season that really meant something. I mean, I'll be honest. As I was watching the episode, when Chapel is in that room on the Cayuga, I can't remember what it's called, and she looks out the window and she sees the Enterprise. She does some great acting, and it even affected me. I was like, I know how I would feel if I was in her situation and I looked and I saw that ship. I felt it. I was like, oh my God, how does that? I know how that feels. It's like salvation. She's like, oh my God, I might get out of this, and you can feel it. It's palpable, and it's a wonderful moment in the show. But there's just not enough, you know.
I wasn't quite sure if Spock was going to respond to her, because I said, well, this is going to be a new Spock where he's going to be like, see you, bitch, and then just kind of like go off.
No. If he could,
side of Spock these days.
Yeah, I understand, but that's not Spock. If he could go back, that's the thing. See, they can't seem to figure out which Spock this is, because they've taken pains to try and go, this is Spock informing. He's becoming the Spock that we see in TOS. And yet we get this moment where he's like, I'm the only one who can go over and place those rocket packets in the precise place where they need to be. It's like, are you? Why suddenly are you the only one? If he is this young, lieutenant who is still trying to, find out who he is and everything, why is he suddenly the only guy who can do this? So it just, make up your mind. It kind of plays false for how they've been trying to make him this. He's experimenting with his human emotions and trying to see if that works for him. And it's like, oh, okay, so Chapel taking off is the thing that's going to convince him that it's like, oh, that was a mistake. I'm just going to become, the hard ass Vulcan now.
I wouldn't have been surprised if he was like, yeah, I didn't see her. Sorry, guys. I mean, it's too bad she didn't make it.
Yeah. Well, he didn't see her until he was she joined him up on the bridge, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still very funny. Like, I wouldn't.
Now, see, I could
if they had done that to him.
If she hadn't like managed to grab the deck, railing with her foot, so she didn't continue going out into space when she was going after the phaser. And maybe she missed it, but she grabs the phaser, manages to turn herself around and shoot the Gorn, and then Spock's like, "Oh, sorry, I can't get to you."
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I have to be honest with you, the way that they've been depicting the two of them together or apart or whatever it is, I just didn't want to feel like, they were going to necessarily show him in the way we know, because they haven't necessarily been showing him with a lot of the same behaviors that we recognize. So, I just thought that was very interesting, Julian, and certainly, a finale. What a finale. Yeah. So, I think we could maybe in the next episode of PGS Treks, we will review the entire season of Strange New Worlds. How does that sound to you, Julian? Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can. What?
I was saying
What was
maybe in the next time that we meet, we will review the entire season 2 of Strange New Worlds, and just talk about what we thought about it when compared to season 1, because I don't think we reviewed season 1.
No, not really.
Season 1. I don't remember a lot of season 1, come to think of it, but yeah, we could do that in the next episode and continue with our review of Harbinger. I know that there was in Las Vegas, they had the convention. I didn't go to that. Did you go? Were you in Vegas last weekend, Julian?
Oh, I wish. No. Last weekend I was in Catalina, so
Okay.
having fun there. But no, we haven't gone to Vegas. We haven't been there since 2018. That was the last time we went to Vegas. And I can't imagine what it would be like with the restrictions that a lot of actors have. I know a bunch of them were there, but they can't talk about certain things. So, you end up talking about yourself a lot more, I guess.
Welcome to me. Yeah, that is something to think about. And that's, I think, pretty much what I'm going to wrap up today's show. Certainly, there was a lot to talk about. Is there anything else you want to discuss tonight on PGS Treks?
Yeah. I was just looking up. I was, yeah. Are you back?
I am. Excuse me.
Okay.
Oops, we lost Julian. And I'm sure he will be back in a moment. Guys, certainly, let's just wait for him to come back. Yeah, we do. Yes, Julian, we're waiting for you to come back. I don't see you here in the stream, but when you come back, I will put you in to the stream in a moment, guys. We're just about to wrap up the show. PGS Treks, we just looked at the 2 episodes of Strange New Worlds. Certainly. Oh, thank you, Irene. Thanks, Irene. That's so kind of you. Thank you so much. That is so kind of you. Hey, Julian.
I don't know what's going on. All sorts of weird things. I was actually trying to look at the Star Trek TOS, the production schedule of the episodes, and it's very interesting that on Enterprise Incidents, they kind of, when they looked at the production order, when they were doing the shows by production order, it was very, very interesting that you could almost, instead of episodic, it was almost a continual, because of the way that the character is built through the season. And so what I found was Naked Time, when Chapel, confesses her love to Spock, takes place before What Are Little Girls Made Of, which is the one where we find out that she's on her way to visit. They're trying to find Roger Corby, who we know that she becomes, affianced to. And so it's very interesting that she's trying to hide she may be fiance to this guy, but she obviously is still having these feelings for Spock, and so she confesses those during the Naked Time. But so I guess maybe that's what they're trying to allude to with a lot of this stuff between the two of them. that she decides, no, this isn't going to work, and she's just tries to dive into being with Roger Corby so she can forget Spock, but it doesn't work. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know myself, but yeah, this was a very unusual season, I think, for Strange New Worlds. And like I said, we're going to review the full season next week. Any final comments or concerns, Julian, before we wrap up the show?
No, it would be good to get back into Harbinger. I think we stopped at like 16 and 17. I wrote down notes for 16, but I didn't get into 17. There was starting to get so much stuff was happening in there. But yeah, it would be good to get back into that because that was so good. I still have to get the next book, and I was really missing that when I was on Catalina. So.
Well, we certainly are going to do that. Julian, where can people find you?
They can find me right here in the Burnettwork. They can find me on Facebook. They can find me on Instagram. They can find me on YouTube. Yeah, so there you go.
Absolutely, guys. Do check out Julian there. You can always reach him here on the Burnettwork as well. And Julian, thank you as always for doing the show tonight. And guys, you can always find me here on the Burnettwork or on my channel, Positive Fandom. I want to thank everybody who was here tonight. I want to especially thank Tom Jr. Jackson, my moderator, collaborator, and friend. Thank you so much, Tom,
Thanks,
for
Tom.
everything. We are all goof people, Tom. And to everybody out there, everybody who is part of the PGS and has been watching the show, want to thank you all for being here tonight. And of course, guys, remember, no matter where you are in the galaxy, always remember to please be kind. Live long and prosper, everybody. Bye.
Cheers.